So hi, we are CargoLabs Incorporated, a financial technology company for truckers. I'm Jake, the tech guy, and John is our industry expert.
Good morning, guys. Thank you, thank you, Pitch Breakfast as well, and also thank you, Dual Boot as well. You guys will probably have a lot to say, and it's cool to see the other supply chain people are in this as well too. So we are working on fintech for truckers, and basically what that means is rewarding, in particular, refrigerated truck drivers for their good work and good service.
Yeah, and we are building a suite of supply chain solutions to help truckers compete in the digital supply chain revolution that's underway right now.
Yeah.
Excellent. So this is the size of our market. It's estimated by the year 2026 that we will see a $94.9 billion a year tech spend, and Trackport is targeting a $3 billion total addressable market with its, and that's CargoLabs' initial flagship platform.
Yeah, so that would be Trackport. And Trackport focuses on the visibility problem, in particular visibility problem in refrigerated trucking. So you've experienced symptoms of this problem before, actually. When toilet paper was not in the stores, a large part of that was because people weren't able to predict the future. They weren't able to predict the demand for toilet paper, and weren't able to get trucks to warehouses to ship toilet paper on time, et cetera. So what the issue is it's technological and it's business related. So from the technological standpoint, there are hardware and software trackers that work well for large companies, but that small to medium-sized brokerages or supply chain intermediaries don't necessarily find satisfactory. The reason they don't find satisfactory is for some numbers and some expectations. So 97% of trucking companies in the United States operate with around 20 or less trucks. Many of those trucks are even owner operators. So it's kind of like herding cats. You've got a ton of private contractors that you might not work with, and you're trying to figure out where they are minute by minute, which is in particular in refrigerated freight is very, very important. On top of that, we spoke about it already, there's a heightened want and need for groceries and refrigerated items or vaccines to be delivered next day or really soon. Call that the Amazon effect, so high expectations. And so the way that these supply chain intermediaries try to do things is carrot and stick method. So there's the stick method where we really try to force these independent drivers or yell at them or fine these independent drivers for not reporting back their location information. And then there's the carrot method, which I would call some technology that's going on. So there's hardware tracking that's actually native to truck drivers' trucks. And then there's software tracking that would be on each driver's phone. The issue with both of these solutions is that they're proving to be really difficult to become scalable. So hardware tracking is really difficult in an extremely fragmented industry. There's about 55 to 60 trucking companies per brokerage. So if these are people that you don't interact with a lot, it's hard to connect to their truck. It takes kind of weeks to do that. And on the software side, where truck drivers use apps to track themselves, truck drivers don't necessarily want to use the apps. And both the apps and the hardware are really, really expensive to onboard because players in the industry have had to develop, essentially software players in the industry have had to develop individual solutions for many, many of their customers. And so when a trucking company goes and say, hey, I want to track my driver through technology, the onboarding costs can be $10,000, they can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And these are companies that are operating on margin. A lot of times the supply chain, the customers that are using these tracking technologies, and it's not always affordable for them.
Yeah, and that brings us to our solution. So the Trackport platform touched on that a bit earlier, and it is a mobile app for drivers, and they can download it now both on iOS, which launched last December, and Android as of October. And then there's also a web app for brokers where they can log in and see where their drivers are on a map, and that the mobile app produces 1-minute geolocation updates. And the key about our platform is that we pay the drivers for every update that they create. So they actually have a direct cash incentive to be able to participate in our network. And we're calling the cash payment system Cargo Cash. And so every update they make, they get Cargo Cash deposited into their digital wallet address on the mobile app, and they can withdraw that like PayPal or Venmo to their bank account. Yeah. And our current status touched on the, yeah, we'll look.
Yeah, so we're working with the customer right now. They're doing about 3,000 loads a month, and they like us because we're flexible. We offer them software tracking for their outside drivers. We also are something affordable for them, and they're hauling a lot of refrigerated. They're only hauling refrigerated produce. And next slide, I think, Jake.
And so we're looking to raise between $500,000 to $1 million. Is the breakdown of what we expect to plan use that money to go towards. So far, we have 125,000 committed. So we're looking for an additional 375 plus. And that's CargoLabs.
Thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you, guys. Great pitch. And now, Daniel, Rob, to you guys.
Rob, I'll let you lead this time.
Okay. Good. Thanks for the good pitch, guys. Again, similar to undergrads, I was checking out the website last night. My initial question was, when just kind of going through the website and as well as listening to your pitch, is what's in it for the driver? So why are they going to use this? And so I'm still not completely clear on what Cargo Cash is. So you're paying them for each check-in. And then if you can just talk about the solution today, I think you can go in many, many different directions here. One direction I would absolutely recommend is automating the bill of lading process, but we can talk about that in a bit. Yeah. But is the solution just have the geo tracking functionality today? And then what does the roadmap look like in the future for the product?
Yeah, those are great questions. So the Cargo Cash payment system, I'll start with that. It's going to be powered by Stripe. It's not live just yet, but we have a placeholder inside of the iPhone app and the Android app where they can see a digital balance when it's ready. And we're just going to plug into Stripe's network. They have a digital wallet feature, and they also support debit cards. So we can get a debit card that links right to our app. They can spend the money anywhere that accepts Visa or MasterCard. And that's the idea of Cargo Cash. And then eventually we might look to do things in-house and cut down on the Stripe transaction fee. But that's years away, probably. And then to your other point about how many updates it works and how they get paid. So every update they produce, we produce them in the background every minute. And that's what we credit the driver as he's driving. And so he has a certain number of updates that we're estimating he can create for a load. And if he produces enough of them, he gets paid all the money. If he produces less, then he gets paid less. And our current customer didn't love our initial idea where we let them set the price for how much the driver would make, because we were thinking if they're hauling iPhones, it might be more important to know where those are than a load of lettuce. So maybe you spend $100 to know where that truck is hauling the iPhones, but maybe only $10 for the lettuce. But instead, it sounds like everyone's more used to a flat fee structure. So that's what we're doing right now.
I would also add as well, automation is a big thing for the user and the customer, in particular for the user. So large brokerages or large companies will hire entire teams of workers to just provide location updates, to just track trucks. And it works both ways. So the trucking company or the truck driver also needs these automation to get out their location updates to their customers. It kind of goes up the food chain, right? So what we provide for the drivers, from us, basically the driver gets to tell their customers when they're 60 miles out, when they're 30 miles out, when they're 15 miles out, when they've arrived. The driver gets to upload their BOL, and we are very interested in furthering digital BOL and automated BOL. Another thing too that drivers have talked about a lot is a contactless check-in, but more than that, really check-in as soon as the driver even hits the geofence. So there's already some contactless check-in where a driver maybe can walk up to an area and say that they checked in and press some buttons without talking to a human. Even better, in particular for refrigerated tracking, because refrigerated tracking is minute by minute. It's so important that we know where these things are. Even allowing the drivers to check in with their trailer number, with their BOL, their items, as they're even passing into the geofence would save a lot of drivers and customers time and headache.
And also a little bit more on the BOL system we have today. Currently, we have Amazon S3 buckets that are set up to host a picture of the BOL, the paper copy. We let the driver take a picture on the phone and then upload to our servers, and then make that visible to the brokers or anyone else in the supply chain who might be interested. And we also trigger email alerts. We have nested geofences as the drivers get closer and closer to the destination. And it triggers alerts that go off to anyone who they want to put in this email system to say, hey, I just arrived on this truck. I'm on this load. This is what time it is. You can expect me kind of around this time. And then the BOL is also attached to the email when they leave the region. It sends the picture of the BOL if it exists. But and in the future, what we're also working on currently right now, getting the BOL onto a blockchain platform, EOS.io. That's the one we're looking at. And if we could create some sort of open source, decentralized system where we could store all these, a digital version of the BOL rather than just a paper copy, that could help automate a lot more processes in the supply chain. We were trying to do it initially with detention pay, but that turned out to be a little bit more challenging because the BOL is what everyone references, but there's no digital copy of this BOL. So if we could create a digital copy of it and then connect it to the piece of paper with maybe a QR code that links into our digital backend, that could be how we have some sort of initial segue step. But
so I think, as I mentioned, I think you can go in a number of different directions here, and it sounds like you have your ideas for a number of different directions with the technology. I just recommend maybe a slide on the product roadmap that shows what is available today. You know, what are the high priority items that you're going to deliver as part of digitizing the freight carrier and timeline as to when that's going to come. Over to you, Daniel.
Sure. Guys, a good job on the presentation. A couple of questions. So one, I got a little, I'm like Rob, who does his homework. I purposely don't do mine because I want to see what I can get out of the presentation, right? And so just a couple of bits of feedback there. I was a little lost. You did such a brain dump of information up front. It took me probably longer than it should have to focus on what problem you were solving and how you were solving it, right? Because you did a lot about market sizing, but I kind of got a little bit lost when you talked about, well, we're focused on refrigerated freight, and at that point, then I was unclear of, well, what chunk of the market that you just talked about was really refrigerated freight. So I was a little lost on kind of market size and where you were focused. The next thing, again, simplifying the problem definition of what's the problem you're solving, and the problem was that for these carriers, right, their customers need to know where their stuff is in real time, and that information's not readily available. So I would do a little bit more of a very simple problem statement, and then the idea, I got a little bit lost on, okay, well, what's the economic model? How are you guys making money? You're paying the drivers, right, when they upload. I got that, but it was a little less clear of, okay, well, who's paying you, right? Who's paying you to be enable that, and how much is that worth to them, right? So this whole idea of, okay, the whatever it was, 18,000 brokerage, right? 97% with less than 20 trucks. They need to know. Their customers need to know where stuff is. There's a value attached to that. Help me understand a little bit about that side, right? What is that worth to them? What is it? What are you paying the drivers? And then what margins do you guys make, right? So to get an investor excited about this, you got last company, right? They had a 50% gross margin. That's not bad, right? What's your gross margin? I didn't have enough information in this presentation to get there.
Sure. And so a couple of things on that. So we do have some investment, and we have our first customer that's moving 3,000 loads a month.
Yep.
So yes, our value prop is for these small to medium sized carriers and intermediaries that are moving refrigerated freight. They need that refrigerated freight tracked. And the reason I bring up refrigerated freight is because refrigerated freight costs about 50% more tracking that than does even regular dry freight in many instances. Right. So that's where we got that original number in the beginning, the $3 billion number. That comes from estimating basically the current tracking costs in the market, and then the refrigerated tracking costs. So that's where that comes from. So for instance, our customer does 36,000 loads a year. They're only doing refrigerated freight. That's going to cost them roughly $1,000 a year to track refrigerated freight, and they're using humans. That's $12 a load. We are bringing that down by around half, if not even less than half, for the customer. So that's the value prop for them, is using technology, and using our technology with our specific options for refrigerated freight is what they use. Now, yes, we will be giving are rewarding drivers, incentivizing drivers basically to have better tracking outcomes for our customers. And right now, our customers, really, we're just practicing even the tracking with our customers. Right now, it depends on the customer and depends on how they want to reward their drivers. So what I do is I go to the customers and I say, well, what's your broker to driver ratio? And so if one customer is using the same drivers a lot, then maybe they don't necessarily want to necessarily share the money or share the rewards with the driver, but perhaps the customer's paying us a higher margin, right, for tracking the load. If the customer has a lot of trucks per broker, then we go into that reward system and say, hey, you're having a really hard time tracking these trucks because you don't know them very well. Use our system and use the money you're already paying to track, right? That $400-some thousand already paying to track, to use our system to have better tracking outcomes. But I really appreciate the feedback. You're definitely correct about that.
All right. With that, I think we're good on time. If you've got any questions for the CargoLabs team, feel free to drop that in the chat, or be sure to stick around after the pitches to join the networking portion where you get to meet Jake and John and ask them questions yourselves. So guys, thank you so much. Oh,
great job.
One second, John and Jake, the one thing, I think you're trying to cram a lot of information into your pitch here. I think you just, especially in that one slide, John spent a lot of time on it. I think you just want to separate out your thoughts and make sure you hit on several key points. So let me just rattle this off really quick. I look for 8 things in a pitch. Your market, how do you make money, or your financials? How are you different than the competition? Tell me about your team. Tell me about the traction you have. What is your ask? What problem are you solving, and how are you going to win? Those are the things that you absolutely want to hit on. And I know I can put this in chat later, but I think you want to make sure your slides go through. It's really hard to do in 5 minutes, and I get it. And your product is somewhat complicated to explain, so you have to partition all of that out. But think through that as you organize your next pitch deck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. We're going to put that on a loop and just run that. That's how we're going to do that. That was awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good job, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks.